My name's Adam Reed, and I wanted to welcome you back to The Wall, the podcast dedicated to all things marathon running. Today we are going to finish up our mini-series of marathon winners and speak with Rob DeSisto, who won the 2023 Steamtown Marathon. I loved hearing Rob's story because it's so strategic. If you are a runner or the type of person that likes to race, this is going to sound so relatable to you because we strategize so heavily how to pick a race and what race is going to be best for us. I love the contrast between both of these episodes because the approach is completely different, and that's what makes running so awesome. You achieve the same result, but different strategy completely. We also are going to see a lot of similarity between these two runners. Both of them have such a passion for running, and you can see that so clearly when we speak. I don't want to give too much else away, so without further ado, let's dive into it. Here's Rob. Thanks for coming on, and I'd love if you could just tell me about, who is Rob? Who is Rob as a runner, and who is Rob outside of running?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really appreciate you kind of bringing me on. Who's Rob as a runner? I've, been a runner since probably sixth grade. So when I was starting in middle school, cross country was one of the only sports that you could do as a sixth grader. The seventh and eighth graders could play soccer, but that wasn't an option in the fall for the sixth graders. So cross country was kind of one of the only avenues that we could do at that point of the year if you weren't playing football, and I wasn't playing football just from a size standpoint. I don't really fit in well there to that sport. So I kind of got involved in running at that stage. It was really more of a let's prepare for basketball indoors, because I was a big basketball player at that time. So I remember the first run I did was that summer with my dad. We were down and we've got a place down on the Cape Cod, and we went out and back on this road. It was the first time I've ever kind of run or anything, getting prepared for that, and he was kind of surprised at how well I was kind of hanging with him on it. So decided to go out for cross that year for sixth grade. Was one of the better sixth graders, and then from there I just kind of snowballed from an interest standpoint. Started doing more local kind of track meets, races, 5Ks. My parents were kind of pretty sensitive about making sure I didn't burn out or anything from doing too much mileage. If I was going to be serious about this in high school, you don't want to do too much at a young age. So, did that and kind of got a lot better at it. Started, running on the junior Olympic circuit and the USATF youth circuit, and realized that, hey, this is really fun, and kind of became forged, I guess, the identity at a young age of I love running. I love being identifying as a runner, and it became less of a let's use this thing to get in shape for basketball, and more of let's go use this thing to actually compete and run races, and kind of when you're not doing that, use it to go explore the town I was in at the time, and use it as almost a socializing aspect with all the other people on my team. So that's kind of how it started, at least.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that you were starting so young. For our listeners, you're fast. You're very, very quick. And I guess you've had years and years and years of loving running. Has running for you always been something that you're just fairly good at, or you had to work at it, and now we're so many years later into your life, you're what I would say is a current fast runner? You said you were the better sixth graders. Was that something you built into, or you just kind of have that raw talent? I know it's always going to be sort of a mix.
Yeah. So just kind of break it down. When I was in that kind of middle school, era, I was pretty good, kind of competing on the national stage, ran a few good races out at the national meets that we had at a time. Ran probably one of the more prouder races that I ran when I was at that stage in my life. I think I ran about a it would have been around a 4:30, like 1500 when I was in 8th grade. So that kind of translates out to like a 49, 450 type mile, and you get a full mile on it. So like that was kind of when I was at my like peak. I would almost say it's always like funny to talk about like you peak when you're in the 8th grade, but that's kind of when I was at my peak. When I went to high school, the curve kind of went down. I plateaued the times, so the times that I was running in 8th grade were the same ones or worse to a degree that I was running in 9th grade. We kind of had to make some changes. I transferred high schools after my freshman year, and that ended up being a good decision for me, just on a personal level and on like an athletic level. In terms of where I went to a Catholic high school from a public high school, and it was a good fit for me. So then kind of started to bring the trajectory back up. Going into junior, senior year was still kind of, I wasn't like the same level of runner that I was when I was in middle school at a high school level, but, was still running some decent times. I had gotten my full mile time down to the time that I had ran in the 1500 when I was in middle school. So that's kind of a good progression when you start running the longer races at the same time that you ran the shorter race at. Ended up kind of not being a good enough runner to run at the D1 level. But ended up, having opportunities to run at the D3 level, which is kind of what got me to NYU. And then the same kind of bell curve occurred in college, where I started freshman year. I was hurt a lot. Went through some pretty like deep valleys in terms of some of the times I ran, and then it really wasn't until senior year, I'd say, at college that I started to find my groove a little bit more, and almost realized, probably a little too late in terms of college, but good enough for now, that I'm probably a little bit better at the longer stuff than I was at the shorter stuff. So yeah, that's kind of, it's been a roller coaster journey. Sometimes the talents popped up. Sometimes you gotta kind of work harder to catch other people. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster for me, for sure. It's not like it's been smooth sailing with any of that stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. You have to work for it no matter what. And as you transition into like, middle school, high school, college, it's just like in academics or everything else, like the pool gets bigger. And, you go back to square one. That senior is, like, going to be faster than that freshman because you have so much to learn. And, I love that. What brought you to learning that, like, maybe the marathon is your distance? What do you consider to be your distance? Is it the marathon, the half?
Yeah, it's interesting. I run 2 marathons now, so I don't
Only
know.
2?
Yeah, just 2. I don't know if I'd say it's my I don't know if I'd say it's my distance quite yet. I don't even necessarily know if I've got a distance per se yet. Like I can tell you, I get my rear end kicked if I ran an 800. I'd probably say though, like when I told you that we were probably focused on the wrong things in college, it was more of I ran a lot of 1500s and mile races in college and didn't run a lot of 5Ks or 10Ks. And part of that was I couldn't stay healthy enough to run those races, the longer ones. And part of it is that the type of training that I was doing just was more focused on those middle distance type events. And I think what I've found is that, at least post-collegiately, the stuff that I tried to focus on places more of an emphasis on endurance stuff. My kind of ethos, I guess, has always been to, when I'm kind of working harder, when it comes to some of the types of workouts that I'll do, or they're longer in nature, may not necessarily be the fastest stuff, but it'll be stuff that you'll be out there for a while. And I think that's kind of what's skewed me to being the type of runner that I am. I think my identity around what race I run, my training skews more towards longer distance stuff, but I'll race anything at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a true runner of, like, I don't care what it is. If I get to go out there and compete, like, that's what you want. I have not yet ever heard that. So I think that you are, like, a perfect picture of what you would consider a run is, like, anything just to get out there.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, back with another news flash. This one's for all my Swifties out there. Taylor Swift, who's known for running as fast as she can, ran fast for fast songs and did a jog or walk for slow songs in preparation for her latest tour. So a lot of people were wondering, how far did she go? How fast did she go? So there were a lot of statisticians out there that did the numbers and crunched it, and for a 3-hour, 15-minute run while singing, Taylor Swift is estimated to have ran 21.6 miles. This would put her just under the 4-hour mark to run a full marathon. So shout out to Taylor Swift. That is quite an impressive time. This recent October, you ran Steamtown. I was also there. Steamtown is like a beast of a hard marathon. In my opinion, it was extremely difficult versus like a very flat, I can go out and run a 6-minute pace and just go. Steamtown is like unpredictable. It can favor you or it can hurt you. So I'd really love to dive into like that race specifically. And, let's just start back at like why Steamtown as a race?
Yeah. I mean, so how I look at it, I've got almost a personal connection with Steamtown. When my friend from college, he ran it in 2018. He got second at it, I think. You're in like 2:27 there. When he ran that in 2018, like me and two of my other friends, we had driven down to kind of support him at the race. I mean, it's a point-to-point race, and it's not like Boston from a point-to-point standpoint, so you can have people out at various points of the race and just continue to drive along the like adjacent roads, and then you can see them at multiple points, to kind of get stuff, whether it's water or whatever. So like that was kind of the why on Steamtown. I was initially going to run. There was a race up in New York. Trials and Miles puts it on for a half and a full there, and I think it was around that time. I hope I'm not confusing my dates. There was a lot of other stuff that was kind of going on around then in terms of races, that there'd be a lot of like 215 guys in, a lot of 220 guys in, a lot of 225 guys in that I was contemplating running. So we kind of set our sights on Steamtown because I knew that given that time of year, given some of the other races that are going on, then you get CIM in probably a month and a half after that, and then there's other kind of bigger races kind of going on then. I think with Chicago is around that time of year. There's other stuff that's going on then, Philly, that it just made a lot of sense in the world for us to do, we wanted to do it. I think I'd known the course pretty well. Just kind of getting into a better mindset to kind of be able to tackle that race. Because I think if you're going to take on a marathon, you need a lot of mental stuff to be going right in all aspects of your life. You kind of you need work to be going well. You obviously need the running stuff to be going well. And, there was a lot of stuff like that I kind of had to get feeling good going into that race, because I don't think it necessarily was going into Houston. But by the time October rolled around, we were feeling, pretty good about it in terms of where we were physically and mentally, and it was like, all right, let's go out and do this thing.
So perfect storm. I mean, the size of the race, I would say it's like a little bit more mid-sized. It's got I think that day was like around 1,000 and some change runners. I mean, spoiler, you get first place, which is awesome. 1 out of 1,000, think about that percentage-wise, like what a crazy feat. But I like that you were strategic. So this is a race that you're thinking like, hey, I want to go out and compete and maybe win? Or, because you said there's others with like 215ers, 220ers. When you signed up for the race, like, yes, you're ready mentally. But when you sign up, you're thinking like, I'm going to go for this.
Yeah, so I think our objective kind of going into the race at least was, let's go out and just try to consistently hold like 5:30s, and let's just not really blow up at all while we're out there. Are you going to win or not really is predicated on who's kind of going to show up. So there's a really, really good guy that lives in Scranton. His name's Dylan Geringer. He's like a 2:14 guy. 2:14 guy shows up to the race, even if he's just running it as a workout, he's gonna win that race against me. So like, and I think particularly how the race played out. I was down a bit on the guy that he ended up, I think, finishing third going into like the 10-mile mark. So for me, it was really just let's plan out. Let's know where the elevation drops and gains are. Let's you kind of know where we're going to be taking bottles, taking goos, and let's just kind of run as consistently 5:30s as we can. If there's a more downhill mile, we'll dip into the 5:20s. If there's something that's more uphill, we'll run something that's like 5:35. But by and large, kind of staying within that range was really the goal. So the reason why I think we didn't do the faster marathons is because if you're in a race where there's a bunch of guys going, 220 or 218 because they're trying to hit the trial standard, there's like a really natural inclination at the start of the race to get sucked into those paces. And I knew that, even if we've got one or two guys that are going out quicker at Steamtown, which did end up happening, that I wasn't necessarily going to get sucked into that, because it's not like there's this big pack out in front of you that you want to be with because things are going to get easier if you're with them. It's just like it's one person, so you can kind of run your race a little bit better.
That's one of the biggest things in racing. Like your coach probably says it, my coach says it. Like everybody that runs is like, hey, those first 5 or 6 miles, you just gotta be really patient. Be behind your pace or right on it, and just don't fall into the people that want to fly out at the start, and then you're going to pass them at the half marathon point. That's probably one of the biggest pieces to a marathon is the patience. You're just playing the waiting game, and it's funny when you're pushing your body to that caliber of, hey, I'm going to run 5:30s. That's not easy. It's definitely not easy on me, and I know it's not easy on you, but it's somehow in the midst of that pace, you're being patient. And that's why I love this race specifically for you, because the story behind it, which we can start to kind of dive into. I want to hear about your journey up at the front, because I ran the same race and had a completely different experience. So you got to be at the front side of the pack with a couple people. So tell me what happened. You're sitting at the starting line and you're looking around, and naturally you're kind of sizing people up. You're like, hey, I might have a chance. That guy looks pretty fast. That guy doesn't look pretty fast, but it's always the ones that don't look fast that surprise you. So walk me through, let's talk about start to finish. How did your journey go with Steamtown?
Yeah, I mean, I think I stayed in that Forest Hills High School for probably as long as I could. My fiance dropped me off, and then I wasn't really getting out onto that start line until right before they did the cannon thing and they did the national anthem thing. It was good. I think the first mile or so was pretty aggressively downhill. I'd gone out kind of a little bit ahead. That was somewhat by design to see who was gonna go with me. By the time we got to the second mile, it was really me and this other guy that he ended up finishing third. His name was Tom. I think he was an Australian he's living out in Denver or something like that. So he was there. We were kind of just talking back and forth the early stages and on what he was looking to do today, what I was looking to do today, and I pretty much told him that there's a lot of downhill kind of going into Carbondale on that race, and I told him look, man, that you're probably, I don't know if you want to take this out harder or not to kind of try to bank time, but I'm going to try to keep it pretty easy on those downhills. So it was very much kind of a tip in our hand, because when we got to those downhills going into Carbondale, he put some time on me. He started running around 5:20 pace, and I was really staying more on the high 5:20s, low 5:30s side.
Yeah. Okay. You're talking, and it's so funny that you guys are first and second just sitting there chatting with each other. how much does that speak for the community? I've done it 1,000 times of like, hey, what are you aiming for? And it's like as we're in the middle of the race. Like, how funny is that?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of like need to do it, right? Because like I think there's with that race, you're out there for 2 hours. Like I always believe like this, and this is something I always believe with like at least the marathon. Once you get to like the 5K, like it doesn't really exist. You can run a 5K on your own. You can't run a marathon on your own in terms of the stuff that you're gonna do for 2 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours out there. Like you need folks that are like in the race to be able to help you out, whether that's communication stuff, just not going like crazy bored out there.
Yeah.
Whether it's like you miss your bottle and you need someone to kind of give you something. That can happen for folks in the race. You need folks that are kind of spectate. You need the spectators to kind of be engaged, give you like a little lift when you're passing them. So like, talking with him the first couple miles of the race, like I always hate when people like don't talk to me. I'm like, and pretty much with like every one of these races, like I'll at least if it's like one of the bigger ones in terms of distance, I'll try to strike a conversation in the early going with folks because it just makes what you're doing that much easier. And like there's a decent amount of money with Steamtown, so like Tom at the end of the day probably still wanted to beat me pretty good because he's gonna get a lot of money doing that. But at that start, like that's not what you're thinking about. You're just thinking about, okay, we're gonna be out here for 2 more hours. Like we got to figure out how we're gonna get through this together. How you're gonna tackle that stuff. So I think that's kind of the genesis in terms of why you start those races. Just with that sense, like it's kind of like a training run, and you're training with someone that you've been running with, and you start out a 18-mile run, 20-mile run, where you're going easy. Like you're going to be talking with the person that you're running with. You're not going to be sitting in silence with them going through 2, 3, 4 miles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so. I totally agree with you. Like, I just ran the Richmond Marathon back in November, and it was just funny just chatting with people. The people that aren't going to really bonk or hit the wall because they can talk back, because it should be like a comfortably uncomfortable pace, at least for a while. And it's just so funny to talk to people when people don't answer me. I'm like, hey, like we're in this together, right? So I love that you were able to talk, but still have that competitive edge. So I mean, you're going to get a ton of crowd support being at the front. You want to talk about being cheered for when they see the first set of people. That is just like inspiring. So I'm sure you got like a ton of cheering. I got a little bit more for me in the back as I was back behind you guys at like the 3-hour mark. But so you're sort of side by side, and he pulls away a little bit. This is one of the most intriguing parts for me because now strategy comes into play, right? Because you're running 5:30s and like that's your goal. But now you can see that he's like sort of in front of you. And now you're in a place where like, I guess what we're going to approach to is like the pass, right? So you're running behind and you're catching him. Do you plan out like a pass? Is it a casual pass? I kind of operate under like after I pass you, like I really don't want to like have to fight or persist for that again. So I need to make sure that it's strong enough that it's like fluid. And I can push ahead and remain, in first place or whatever place that I'm in. So talk to me about like the pass and like paint a picture of what's happening. Because I'm not there. I want to like envision how this whole thing looks.
Yeah, I mean, there at least your Steamtown, there's a police cruiser, then there's like kind of the press truck that they have, where I think they had like a reporter or two on it. Then there's usually a couple motorcycles. Then there's the bikes, and then there's kind of the leader, and then the person that's kind of in second, and I think the guy in third too, and then the lead woman. They're gonna get they're typically going to get some sort of bike escort where they're kind of with you the entire race. So It's funny when he kind of pulled away, going down into Carbondale before the half point. I told my bike escort, I'm like, I'm not sure how this is going to shake up, but we're going to keep running pretty even here, and we'll see if we get him, because I didn't want to gas my legs before we had those hills in the last 3 miles. In terms of like the pass component of it, I I forget when I got him. I think it was around half or maybe a little after. And you know, I came up on him. I told him, you know, typically what I do is if I'm gonna pass someone in a race like that, I'll tell them like, hey, let's go, let's start moving here. And you know, sometimes they kind of go with you, and it wakes them up. Sometimes they don't. It didn't wake him up. I'd say, I mean, he was kind of hurting at that stage. So, you know, for me, if I pass someone, it's like not you like pass them and then one step them. It's like you pass and you keep going. But I mean, at the same time, I'm still running kind of consistent 5:30s, so we're not like surging to kind of, you know, get in front there. But yeah, I mean, having the bikes there was kind of key, because when you make that, you know, move, then you're kind of, I think I had the same bike that was with me, and he had the same one that was with him after that, which was good, because like I was able to continue talking with the bike on my left. I'm like, all right, so we did that. Like here's how I'm gonna like approach this. And I had the bike kind of, you know, I can't look behind me when I'm running, but I've got the bike that can kind of look behind me when I'm running to tell me like, hey, what's he doing? Is he like looking good, or kind of where's he at? So, you know, a couple miles after we passed him, he was kind of giving me, here's what's going on behind you, which helped.
That's a funny thing about that you mentioned, like the bike looking behind, because I have had one experience where I won like more of a major race. It was about 500 people. I got first, which was like huge bucket list for me, and I trailed second until the last mile. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because there's like a turnaround when that person like starts to turn their head. I'm like, okay, now I know when you're turning, it's like when you're hurting and you're not focused on you anymore. So it's such a cool experience that you get like a little sidekick with you, like a bike guy that can kind of give you information that you can just stay focused on your race, and like they're kind of guiding you. Plus a person to talk to. I mean, that is awesome. Not many of us get to experience like bike escort, police escort. Like, how surreal of a feeling was that for you to now I'm like leading a marathon? I know that you've won like a lot of races, but this is like a marathon that now you're leading. What does that feel like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I mean, it was kind of the A goal. I told my fiance once I saw her, I think it was like 16 or 17. I told her, like, I'm not, like, I'll see you at the end. I'm not losing this race today. Once, you know, everything, I passed the guy and like had kind of, once I was like feeling like good enough. I was like, we're gonna be good. I think at the end of the day, part of the reason why again we ran Steamtown was because you kind of knew what you were getting into in terms of the support that they were going to have. It's a very well run race. It's been very well run for years. Kind of knew that we were going to have that, you know, support out there, both from the people in the crowd and from like the bikes that were out there to help us and the police stuff. It's a good feeling, because I think you again go through it with the concept that you're not kind of out there alone. Like if you're running 225 at CIM, or you're running 225 at Houston, like today, there are going to be moments where you are by yourself out there on the course without anybody there. So like if you were going to say something, like let's just say you wanted to tell someone, hey, I'm hurting really bad right now, there's going to be no one out there to hear it at those races. But the nice thing with Steamtown is that you kind of had someone that was always there for you, even if, you know, they weren't going to be the most, you're not going to have the most deep conversations with them. It's kind of nice to have that person that's always right next to you, because you don't really feel like you're alone. And I think that in the marathon, that's one of the things that, like, you kind of turn from being a good marathon runner to, like, a great marathon runner, is being able to be okay with being alone in a race. Kind of being alone at your thoughts and not needing someone next to you. At Steamtown, just from a mental standpoint, I was able to kind of handle the distance physically, but mentally I felt like I still kind of needed that there for me. So it was really nice to have it, kind of the whole the whole way, at least for me, which was really good. And I think a lot of people get that when they're doing some sort of pace group as part of a race, and they're trying to key off someone that has a flag, or they've got some mark on their back that, like, hey, I'm going to be the 3-hour pace group or the 4-hour pace group. If you're running with that person, you're kind of it's the same kind of thing where your watch is going to be just as good as that person at telling you what your pace is, but you kind of have that person there to do a lot more additional stuff, to help you mentally tackle the distance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I haven't thought about it that way. And being with those pace group packs, or any pace, like, is so beneficial. You get a little bit more crowd support as you're coming through. What a cool experience. I'm really happy that you bring that up, because it's just like the running community in general. Like, people that don't run with others don't have successful training and don't have, like, good experiences surrounded around running. So we all have to find, like, what works for us. And there's so many running groups now, like on Facebook, and you're part of, like, the running club, and, like, so much, right? So I think that we need to lean on that, because while this is an individual sport, there's so much community around you. You just have to get plugged in. And I mean, it can make you a faster runner. You can, like, progress a lot more as you have people to run with. I love the, like, passing your fiance and you're like, I'm gonna leave here with first. Like, how cool to know that mentally, like, you are not gonna, like, let up, and this is gonna be, like, your race. You knew that at, like, 16, 17. Is there like any point in the race that you're thinking, like, this is getting hard, like, I want to quit? Because where does that potential wall come into play? You might not feel it physically during this race, but did you experience any walls?
Yeah, probably before the race. Yeah, I experienced a wall. There were talks week up before the race on, hey, should we go up and do this thing or not? Yeah, we drove up from Atlanta, and that's about freaking 17-hour car ride.
Oh,
from Atlanta.
Yeah,
16 hour, I don't know. It's probably a little shorter. I forget. I'd have to go back and look at it, but it's a long way. But, like, we the wall that I almost needed to get to for this one was a mental one around, okay, are we gonna actually run this thing? Are we gonna try it again? And that kind of internal battle conflict was going on up to the week of the race. And I think we decided, okay, let's go up and do this. Like, we need to kind of rip the Band-Aid off with this ever since Houston, and once the kind of race went off, that's when I was kind of over that, to be totally honest with you. I think a lot of people go through that, when they have some sort of injury and it's their first race back, your first workout back, or even your first run back. Like, there's always that element on, all right, should I go and start and do this again, or should I pivot or give it another week, or circle something else in the calendar. And I think for us, at least with this race, I never hit, like, a physical wall at any point of this one, which was kind of nice. I mean, I was pretty sore at the end, but nothing like your body can't function anymore like it did at Houston. It was really before the race that we kind of needed to get over the hurdle, push beyond it, and then we were going to be good once the gun went off, or I guess the cannon went off. Yeah,
the cannon.
So yeah.
I love that. What, like, an inspiring and encouraging piece right there of just, like, coming back, like, giving it a shot. Like, look what it turned into. Like, what a fantastic race you had, just getting over that, like, mental wall leading up to the race. The first marathon is, like, I don't really know what to expect, and even though, like, a majority of us blow up and it's not our perfect race, the next one's harder because you know what's going to happen. You know potentially what you can start feeling. So, yeah, I'm glad that you went out there and, like, went after it. I loved hearing your story. Steamtown sends out, like, a little booklet after, and when I read it, I just thought to myself, like, I have to have you on the podcast, because what a crazy story of just knowing I'm going to be consistent, and, like, that's what the marathon is about. That's what running is about, is just going out and just consistently looking for the joy in it. With people doing a 5K, a 10K, like any distance, you are like an image of that of just consistency. As long as I can get out there and run, like you're happy. So yeah, love that. Super cool. And I agree, it's so well organized. I've never been to a race where when you cross the finish line, usually you have to like walk and just keep going. Everybody's like, just get out of here. Just like keep going. Steamtown, I hope that it stays the same field size, and I'm sure it will because I love it. They put chairs all along the finish line. If you just want to sit down, like, go for it.
It's really well run.
They have chocolate milk and chili and pizza and like every food under the sun. I think I drank like 5 cups of chocolate milk after, and I never in my life do that. So, yeah, huge props to them just putting on a fantastic race. Hey everyone, back with another update. I just found out that the 80-20 rule is actually based off of time. So if you don't know what the 80-20 rule is, it's very common for beginner runners that you should run 80% of your runs, distance, workouts in an easy pace, something conversational, and 20% at a faster, harder pace. That could be marathon pace, sprints, intervals. That is the general knowledge to do 80% and 20%. It's always been really vague for me. Should I do 4 out of 5 of my workouts easy pace or what? So just found out it's actually based off of time. So if you are running 5 hours a week, 4 of those hours should be dedicated to an easy pace. But I saw that you have been going to like Waffle House on occasion. Are you a big Waffle House guy? Is this like
The biggest. Yeah,
is this a post-race treat or what is this?
Oh no. That's an every week treat. When you're down in Atlanta, that's like Waffle House is an institution down here in terms of it's our like I'm again originally from Boston, but Waffle House is like our version of like Dunkin' Donuts down here, and I go there. We go there all the time. I mean, it's like in my opinion one of the better kind of draws of the like greater Atlanta area is just how many Waffle Houses are around. I pretty much only go to the I go to the same one that's like fairly close to our house. I know the waiters and the cooks and all that stuff. But it's good. I mean it's. And I could go off like ad nauseum here in terms of just how I believe it's one of the best restaurants in the United States, just from a fast, like casual standpoint, and the value that you get out of your meal there, and just like the kind of the vibe that you're gonna get when you go in. I've never really had a bad meal at Waffle House, and I almost religiously kind of go to it if there's mentally something going on in my life. I will run first, see if that solves it. If that doesn't solve it, I'll go to Waffle House. If that doesn't solve it, like, there's something serious going on that I need to, like, figure out. So, that's kind of the, the move for me, at least, is, it's a good outlet. I mean, it really is, and I'm kind of being facetious, too, a little bit about it, but, no, I actually really do love it. It's one of my, like, favorite places to go, down here, just A, to eat, and B, to just kind of hang out and be at.
I mean, if they know you by name, that's something that they know that. I think that people joke on Waffle House all the time, but I mean, it's still standing.
Waffle House is my spot, but I think for my fiance and I, one of the things that we travel all over the world. We do a bunch of traveling, but the type of like restaurants that we like, at least in America, are the what I'll describe as like the non-fancy, like $20 a meal like type spots. Sometimes they'll be chains, sometimes they'll be local places. Like we love that stuff. We don't typically go to like super like cheap like fast food places a lot like McDonald's. We don't go to super high end food places a lot and like dine out and fancy ways. And when we do, we typically don't enjoy it as much as we would than if we like go to Applebee's or Chili's, or we went to I went to Olive Garden the other day. I freaking love Olive Garden. I loved Olive Garden since I was in college at NYU. We used to go all the time for our like pre-race meals. So like that's kind of like my sweet spot is like restaurants and spots like that. I don't really have any that I like despise or hate, I'd say. So.
I like that you bring that up because there's such a high price that I put on like the value of like the food that I'm eating to like the quality. I would take like a lower quality of food if I only paid like $10 for it versus like it's a little bit better, but I paid $35 for it. So
yeah.
Is there a race that's on the calendar next for you for like marathons, or you are still thinking about all of that?
I think I am registered and set for Chicago next October.
Same here.
But I don't. Again, it's just kind of going to be if the schedules align and kind of training's going well. October's a long ways away, so there's a lot of stuff that can happen till then. But I got a couple other friends that are kind of trying to target to run there, so it'd be good if we can all run it and kind of pace off each other. We're all around the same ability. So it'd be cool to kind of get out there and run that. But that's how things are looking. There'll be a lot of other shorter stuff. I mean, I enjoy running local races. I think a lot of the times you can get accomplished what you need to accomplish through local stuff. A lot of people think you need to like, travel or go kind of across the country to run a fast time, and it's not necessarily. Sometimes the case, not always the case. So particularly Atlanta this time of year, winter's not too crazy, so we can typically find some good local races. It's just tough to find them flat. They're usually pretty hilly.
Yeah, little hills. Yeah, Chicago would be cool. I'm interested to hear your experience on that because, at a world major, you get packed in like sardines. So it's going to be an interesting one. People treat the like world majors sometimes as a celebration or something. But yeah, super cool. I'm going to ask you, at what point in your running career or otherwise, maybe in like your outside life, did you hit a wall, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have hit a lot of walls in my life. Some of them I'm still trying to climb, over. When we initially moved down here to Georgia, we were not happy in kind of the place that we initially moved to. The toughest part of that, overcoming the wall piece of things, is kind of identifying the problem that you have and what it's like kind of leading and driving towards. Around, the house stuff, we sold the place that we had, and we kind of bought a new one that was better for us. So, for me, in terms of how to kind of overcome some of that stuff, and some things I'm still kind of, like I said, trying to climb it and get over it, are you got to identify what the problem is, and then you got to identify what the ingredients to the solution are, and then once you do that, you need to apply those into your life to kind of go about and handle things. So that's kind of, at least that's how I'd approach it.
Yeah. I like that you said that. And it's interesting that you said that because I just also interviewed another marathon winner, a female who won, and she said like the same thing. One of the biggest aspects is like just identifying like what's going on, and that's so difficult when you're in the moment. So like I really applaud you for being able to recognize like, hey, there is something going on while you're like dealing with it. So do you have any advice for someone that wants to get into running and is just thinking about starting with the new year here? There's a lot of people that are thinking about trying out a marathon or even trying out like a 5K.
The best piece of advice that I could probably give to anybody that's starting out is just get a support system together that's like going to help you accomplish whatever challenges are going to get thrown your way. I mean, I've got my fiance and my family, like always, they're always engaged in terms of what I'm doing with a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. They're tracking me. They are asking kind of how training's going, asking what the plans are. I mean, I talk to my dad probably every other night about on the phone about kind of what's going on with just life, running stuff, and all the other stuff as well. So I think like a support unit is just really important when it comes to starting a kind of path journey as a runner. It just helps you're able to handle adversity a lot better when you're not just tackling it alone, and you're able to work with others, and like I'll call my other friends that are still kind of competitively running and ask their take or point of view on something, and I'll obviously talk to my coach, and I'll talk to my family on kind of how to approach this challenge. And I think that a lot of people think running is like a sport it's very individualistic. Everything that you're doing from a goal standpoint, it's all stuff that you control, because at the end of the day it's your legs, it's not someone else's legs that you're kind of running races on. But it's to accomplish the goals, I think a lot of the times that you want to accomplish, you need to have a really good support system in place to be able to help you just with some of the challenges that you're not even thinking about when you start, but that could pop up as time goes along. So
yeah, I agree with that. Just a huge shout out to all the people that are on the sidelines, like supporting, that do all the traveling, the spouses, the parents, the family. They're in it as just as much as we are. So that's awesome. I like that you kind of put it that way. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, that's all I had. I'm really happy that you were able to come on here, and we could just get to learn more about your journey and what running looks like. And I thank you for that.
Yeah, no, this is great. I really appreciate you having me on. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I also, it's been fun kind of sharing all this stuff